Welcome to the section of the video about a Metic. And a Metic stands for a midterm effort to improve class. A Metic is something that found its way into the Harkness curriculum that I know directly from Phillips Exeter. In fact, teachers are required to conduct Medics at Phillips Exeter. And it's one of the things that is in this curriculum taken directly from them because, frankly, the public school context doesn't prevent a Medic at all. In fact, I think a Medic works well in not only any educational context, but any group collaborative context. So I'm going to talk briefly about what a Metic is and what I really like about a Metic. And I will say that a Metic is one of the things in this curriculum that I think transfers most easily to, and I sort of made this point earlier, but really any classroom, even if you are not, in quotes, I'm using the quote signs, a Harkness classroom. I think that the Metic could really help bring things to light, set an environment, and orient your class in a healthy way, especially if you're feeling like you're experiencing some ruts. So the how-to of a Metic. I'm going to open this, and this document is one that I'm going to have you read shortly. So I'm just going to sort of glance over this. So the Metic starts by giving your students a questionnaire. I like to use a digital questionnaire, and I'll explain why shortly. Key thing to understand about this questionnaire, and as in all things Harkness, I would be transparent with your students about this. The purpose of a Metic is to get a sense of what's going well and what's not going well for your class. I think that that's all you really need to say to your students. It's a midterm class survey. This survey is anonymous, and that whether you do it digitally or whether you do it by hand or on paper, you want these to be anonymous, and you want to ask questions that are simple enough that students can answer them on their own, but direct enough, open enough actually, so that students can't just respond in 1 to 2 words. So for example, what have been your favorite parts of class? Give specific examples. Now, students could definitely say like taking a break, talking to my friends. And that doesn't give you a whole lot of depth, but you have at least made the effort of asking them to be specific. So you're not just asking them for what they like and don't like. You're asking for improvements, and you're asking them to reflect on their own process. What can they do to get more out of this? This has 5 questions. I wouldn't do more than 5. So, okay. Starts by giving a questionnaire. You then want to get the responses to your survey. If it's on paper, this is done pretty easily. If it's your Google form, you want to get the responses back to the students. And I should say, when you tell them to fill out the survey, you need to make it clear that the responses to the survey are going to be read out loud in the very next class. So I think it's useful to have them fill out the survey in class the day before the actual Metic. Let them know, again, that these responses are going to be read out loud. Everyone is going to hear what everybody says, and that the survey is anonymous. This sort of second section goes over how to print the Google form survey in a way that's really clean. I'm not going to review that. You can read it yourself. So down here we have how to run your actual Metic. So it is the day of the Metic. I want to start out by saying I think it's important that you allow at least 25 minutes for the Metic. So as in all things Harkness, it takes time. Do I think it's worth it to build a culture of trust, to build a culture that rewards taking risks and being vulnerable? I do think it's worth it. So at this point, what you've done is you've had students take the survey, you have anonymous responses, and you have them on paper. Crucially, this is all by hand. You should not have computers open for any of this. So you then want to give every student a response sheet. So every student has another student's responses in front of them. I think it's important that you alone read through all the student responses before you hand them out. If a student says something mean about another student, that, to me, doesn't deserve being read out loud. If a student is grandstanding or showing off in a way that is not productive to the growth of the class, and that's intentionally subjective, then I don't think you should include it. And if what you need to do, because at that point you don't have enough responses to give everybody, well, because they're anonymous, you can just take a few responses from another class and put them in, and nobody will be any wiser. So students will have two things. They're going to have an anonymous response in front of them, and they're going to have a tally sheet that looks like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to have every student read all the responses to the first question. And as folks are listening, they should be taking notes in this left column. What have been your favorite parts of the class? Maybe if folks start talking a lot about discussion, students could just write discussion. If you do attendance questions and kids like that, attendance questions. So not full sentences, just quick notes. But what you're getting here is kids to note down trends. And you could tell them, if kids are saying the same thing over and over again, just put a check mark next to it. That way the kids can see what other people in the class like. Just as crucially, they can see what other people in the class don't like. And you can see what other people don't like. And the kids can see you and hear you noticing that. I really think that, when you do a Metic, you are exposing yourself to getting critical feedback in front of the whole room. That can be raw. But I think it's really valuable that the kids see you absorb it. And then once the Metic is over, they see and they feel and they hear you making some of the tweaks that they want you to make. Now, kids will say, one thing I'd like you to do to improve class is, give us a 15-minute break in the middle of class so we can go to the cafeteria. Well, obviously, you're not going to do that. Just because the kids, even if it's a trend, a preponderance of kids who want something, that doesn't mean that you have to honor them. But I think what you will hear is certain pieces of advice might sneak through that are useful for you to implement. And I think that really matters, that they experience you making changes that they are asking for as a group. So you're going one question at a time. They are all reading out the responses to one question. They're taking trends, and then they move on to the next question until you're done. It is worth noting that I always tell my kids, if you don't feel comfortable reading something out loud, I will read it for you. So you kind of want to walk around with the questions. So as the questions are being transferred around the room, you're sort of following, so you can step in and take a sheet from a kid and read it out loud for them. Once all the responses have been read, I think it is useful to save at least 10 minutes. So now, we're in the 30 to 35 minute range. If you have time, I have skipped this in the past, but if you're willing to do it, I think it's really valuable to just have a full group discussion, or you could have a small group discussion, answering these prompts in italics. Here, how did this feel? What did you like about this kind of reflection? What did you dislike? What seems to be going well in class? What seems to be things that folks want to change? So this is the gist of the Metic, and again, I really hope that you'll consider taking some time and doing this, because I have really experienced, more often than not, when I do a Metic, it's in the midpoint of the class, and any sort of ruts or unproductive behavior, bad habits that I'm experiencing in the class, more often than not, they change. Is it a silver bullet? Does it change everything? No, of course not. But I do feel a measurable change in accountability to me that the students have, and to each other, more importantly, from the students.